My name is Russell Sage and I make $247,000 a month at 17 years old. Now, to me, it still sounds a little bit crazy just to say, however, things were not always like this, and I'm about to break down the entire story of how I got here. And guys, it wasn't all success. 2 years ago, I was literally addicted to gambling. I was bringing my bank account down to $50 every single day. And then fast forward to today, my business has made me well over $1 million this year, and we have been making typically $250,000 every single month. And before I start, I want to be clear, this isn't going to be some motivational story. This is literally going to be exactly what happened freshman year of high school all the way until now, how I got to this point. I'm going to break it down all for you guys. So honestly, whether you're struggling right now, whether you're just curious what's going on, whether you're in my position, whatever it may be, this is going to be a completely unfiltered story on how I got to this point, and I feel like it can help you guys out. So in order to go to where the story actually started, I need to take you guys back about 3 years now to my freshman year of high school. Just for some background as well, like even before that, all through middle school, I had a couple different little side businesses. Again, obviously, I didn't even have a phone until 7th grade, so it wasn't anything too serious, but I was building and selling tech decks. I was selling homework answers. And then if we go way back to like preschool, kindergarten, I was selling paper airplanes and things like that. So this is something that's clearly always been on my mind. I've always been curious, like, how can I get this going? But I didn't really start a real venture, like a real business in any case, up until my freshman year in high school. So we go into freshman year. I'm 14 years old. I was super academic heavy. I wasn't studying 10 hours a day or like anything like that. I was typically able to keep my grades up. However, I was super into it. So much so that if I look in my notes app and I was to go back 3 years, my goals would have been straight A's in school, study 2 hours a day, things like that. So that's how it was. I'm 14. The first half of the school year, I'm super focused on that. So how did I get to the point where I started my first business? What was that business? Let's talk about all that. As I started nearing winter time, I guess I started seeing more content pop up, or I started seeing people around me. And when I say around me, I mean online circles, doing a little bit more successful. And something in my mind just caught me, and I was like, why am I not doing this? I don't know if you guys have ever felt the feeling of just being ordinary. Like you're just like everybody else. Like there's nothing unique about you. You're relatively average, like whatever. You're kind of like everyone else. And that's how I felt. And at 14, that's something that really bared down on me. I was like, hey, why am I ordinary? Why am I average? Why is there nothing about me that's special? That's, I wouldn't say unique, but like significant. Something that's better, something that people can look at me and say, hey, he does that. And so as I started nearing winter, I had a couple different choices, right? I could go super in academically and just dial in on studying, on school, try and get the best grades I possibly could, try and get into a great college, whatever. But that wasn't something that interested me. I never really cared too much. Again, I was academically heavy, like I wanted great grades, but I knew that never was the end goal for me. Option 2 was I could start lifting. I could start going to the gym, getting myself really big. And honestly, I did try that for a little bit. I was in the gym. Obviously, it's good to go to the gym. I still do now, but like I was in the gym every single day. My freshman year, I was never too big, but I had good genetics. I never ate enough food, so I was on like the skinnier side, but that's something that I did. And I guess kind of adjacent with that was I could be super good at a sport. Like I could be a standout at whatever sport. And for me, I wrestled, I played tennis. I may have had another sport in there somewhere, but like I started kind of focusing in on wrestling. The season was coming up. It was winter time. How can I become a standout here? Like, how can I get better? And I started going really heavy into that. Overall, like above and beyond, yes, I'd always been super interested in business, but I think for me, what mattered more was just being significant, like just having something in my life that set me apart. And in all honesty, that could have been possible with sports, that could have been possible with academics, could have been possible with something else, but your peers are always going to keep up with you in those regards. Like they're always going to be super hardworking in those places. And I guess business was something that was more untapped, like something that people weren't really trying, something that was a risk, something that is almost like a story. Like even for you guys watching this, it's almost like a fairy tale, like a story that you see somebody successful in business. But many people, and myself included, I didn't know anybody around me at that age, or even a couple years older, like I knew nobody that was really successful at it. And so something kind of switched there. And around the January, February point, this was my freshman year in high school, 14 years old, I was super into business. I watched all the dropshipping videos, all the Jordan Welch, all the Nathan Nazareth, all the Iman Gadzhi for the marketing agency stuff. I started moving more into clothing brands as well, all of that. I was super into marketing, super into dropshipping, all the popular stuff that was out there that at that time, like I was watching all of it. Now at this time, I was a full-time student, a full-time wrestler as well. So I only had a couple hours a day, and I spent my free time just dialed in on YouTube. YouTube. I would guess I probably watched 10 to 20 hours a week worth of YouTube videos just on online business, how I could be successful with it, how I could get started in it. And a big thing for me was, how can I get started in it with zero capital up front? Absolutely zero. Because at this time, something that's important to know is I didn't even have a bank account yet. I had nothing. Like, my life savings was in a savings account, obviously, that I had no control over. My parents had the bank account. I didn't even have it. It was also maybe a couple grand. I did not have much money to my name whatsoever. I didn't even know I had it, really. So at this point, I found out about dropshipping, obviously, and that was the first business model that I tried. So now we're January, February, and as I go over each of these business models, each of these ventures, I have a lot of stuff that I can show you guys that I personally posted and that I personally tried, and like my dashboards and stuff. So I'm going to put that on the screen up as I go. So it looks like the first products that I ever tried to sell was these chains. So I had stainless steel chains. They were gold, they were black, they were steel or silver, and I was trying to make those work. So I guess that was the first thing I did. And the reason I did that was because I had a chain, so I was able to kind of use that in my marketing videos, and I'll show you guys what some of the videos looked like as well. So that was the first thing I did, and this got 0 sales, so I didn't sell a single one of those. Now the second thing was a little phone mount, and I didn't even know how to post videos for that because I didn't have it. So I used these slideshow images, and again, I'll show you guys what that looked like. Again, absolutely 0 sales. Then what I did was I rebranded my dropshipping store. I made it called Look Good, Feel Good. I used like a Canva template. Again, I'll put that on the screen. And I started watching more videos. I started watching Nathan Nazareth more, how to post on TikTok, how to post organic, because I had no money for ads. Now I made a little shift around this time and I joined a community. It was on Discord. That was the first community that I ever joined. I'm not going to say the guy's name. He's relatively small, but he had like a ton of business models that you could try, a ton of stuff that had to do with dropshipping. So I joined there and tried to learn a little bit more. Now the next thing I tried was like the little, forearm gripper kind of thing. I made a couple videos with that. Again, I'll put them on the screen. That again did not work. I got absolutely 0 sales, was not able to convert a single thing from that. Now I landed on a product and it was like a beanie with a headlamp on it. And I was posting on TikTok. I was posting organically, months and months. Finally, I got 1 sale. So I got 1 sale out of all of this. It was probably $20, guys. I was running off of Shopify free trials. I didn't even have a bank account. So this took me 4 months. It's a 4-month venture. I wasn't able to get any profit out of it whatsoever. I got 1 sale. And so that kind of set me back, because at this point, what was going through my mind was like, hey, is this even real? Do I know anybody that's making money online? Do I know anybody that's making money with dropshipping? Like, is this even real? Those were the thoughts that were going through my mind. And I could have stopped right there. Like, honestly, guys, I could have stopped right there. I could have gone back to the status quo, like what everybody else was doing. And I didn't. I've always been somewhat good at, like, if I have something I want to do, I'm gonna go and get it. And so I bounced back. So I started a marketing agency. My marketing agency was called RJS Media. Obviously, if you guys watch any Iman Gadzhi, he recommends just doing your initials, something like that. And so I named it RJS Media. I watched a ton of Iman Gadzhi videos. I watched videos on how to run Facebook ads. I studied so much. And where I got caught up was finding a client. And so I outreached for months. I was doing cold email. I was doing cold calling. I didn't land a single client throughout probably 2 months, I'd say. So now we're 6 months into business, 14 years old. I had no idea whether this was real or not. I couldn't land a client. I couldn't make a penny. And I had to make some sort of a shift, some sort of a transition. Now, this is where it starts to get good, because this is where I started like my first real business, tangible business, like actually got some results. And this business was called No Limit Apparel. It was a clothing brand. You can still find it on Instagram. You can still find it on TikTok. In fact, I even have one of the shirts right over here. This was one of the shirts of the clothing brand. It was a Travis Scott shirt. It was the last drop of my brand. And I kind of just keep it next to my desk as like a reminder of where I came from. And this is the logo for the brand. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Now, in terms of the clothing, I guess it depends on whoever's watching this if you like it. But if you were to ask me, I would say no, I don't like it. I made that t-shirt. I made a different t-shirt. I made a zip up. I didn't like any of them. I maybe wore them outside once. I probably would have never worn them. Now, the whole point in me saying this is telling you guys that, like, yes, the clothing is like, I guess some people like it. I don't like it. All I cared about was the business aspect of things. How do I become successful? How do I make money? That's what I cared about at this point. And so I'm 14 years old. I turned 15 in April, but I started this back in March. So I started it. I started posting videos on TikTok. I made mock-ups. I had a bank account at this point, so I was able to buy samples. And we just started rolling. I was so tenacious on TikTok. I posted 3 times a day, every single day for months on end. I got 1,000 followers at one point. It was like a massive thing for me. I was super happy about it. I sold out my first drop. So my first drop was these zip ups. Again, I had Instagram and TikTok. I'll put the zip ups on the screen. I'll put everything on the screen. And I sold out. I sold 50 zip ups. I felt absolutely amazing. In terms of revenue, I probably made $1 to $2 grand revenue. But in terms of like how much I actually paid for the material, I probably broke even. In the bank, I maybe made $500 to $1,000. Now, you guys gotta figure, like, for a 15-year-old who started a business and finally got some sort of results, I was on the moon. I felt absolutely out of this world. I felt so good. When you guys put hard work into something and you feel like it's just not possible and you just work at it tirelessly for months and months and months. And my first drop was in May, and I finally like saw this is possible. I was on top of the world. It's indescribable, that feeling that I felt of like, yeah, this paid off. Like, I'm doing this now. I'm gonna do this. And so we keep going. I have another t-shirt and I start marketing that. It's not going as well. I have a model that I had do it on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm still putting out content. And then this is the major shift. The major shift was I was in a community. Again, I won't name the guy's name, but I was in a community on Discord. It was paid. It was $50 a month. And I was like, all right, $50 a month. I'm going to start taking this seriously. And they leaked a little bit of a method on TikTok. And this doesn't work anymore, but this was back when TikTok Shop was coming out. So this was in like August of 2023. And essentially, if you put your product for your clothing brand on TikTok Shop and you jacked the price up to like $5 grand, you would easily, this was OG rage baiting. I would rage bait everybody. They would comment, they would click the button, they would just engage. And long story short, over the next couple months, I gained probably 6,000 followers, probably about 20 million views, 500,000 likes, hundreds of thousands of interactions, thousands of comments, like you name it. Through that, thousands of people were visiting my website every single day. I was selling every single one of my t-shirts. I think I had 100. I sold out all of them. They were cheaper, but I sold them all out. And you got to imagine, guys, I was feeling amazing. This was over the summer. I was literally on top of the world. I felt so good. Now, this is when things start going down. My third drop is those Travis Scott t-shirts. I actually kind of like them a little bit more than everything else. I like that Travis Scott t-shirt more than the other ones, and it just didn't sell. Like, it just didn't. I posted on TikTok, I posted on Instagram, it just didn't work. And around this time, guys, rage baiting is cool, right? Gets you a ton of views. People also get very upset with you. And so people were reporting my account. I ended up getting banned on TikTok for being under 18. And what am I gonna do? I'm gonna submit my passport to them so that they can see I'm under 18? Of course not. I submitted my passport, actually, is what I did. Funny enough, I was 15. And they let the account back because you're allowed to be on TikTok at that age, but you don't get the same push. You don't get the same views. And so it killed my account. Essentially, that account, and it still sits, you guys can still look it up, but like, it doesn't get views. And so it killed everything. I still have probably 20 of those shirts left in my closet that I was never able to sell. It pushed the brand to the ground, and it's a little bit like humiliating to say, but I was very upset at this point. And I started reselling AirPods. I started doing the reselling stuff, but it's sketchy. Like, it's definitely on the gray area side of legality, you know? And so I was dealing with the wrong people. I was talking to the wrong people. I was doing the wrong stuff. I was leading myself down the wrong path. And, you know, something pulled me away from it. Like, it just wasn't going to work. Something pulled me away. And what I mean by that is I started getting a large number of chargebacks, even on the orders I already had on my Shopify. And so my bank account basically went to zero. And with that, you know, we enter a pretty dark area. And this happens, guys. Like, you know, my story, even though I'm 17 years old, my story is relatively complete with problems and with downfalls. And that's what we're entering into right now. Up until January of my sophomore year of 2023, I was pretty addicted to online gambling. So alongside with the sketchy stuff, obviously I had a FanDuel set up. I was sports betting all the time. But I moved into the casino on the FanDuel app, and I started playing a lot of Baccarat, if you guys know what game that is. And the issue for this, when you have a teenager, a 15-year-old who doesn't know any better, who has maybe $500 in the bank, is every day in school, at home, I would be taking my bank account down to like $50 and just bringing it all the way back up. I got very lucky that I didn't lose everything, but it was incredibly stressful. It was not the right place to be. I started getting into like that kind of addiction, and it just was not good. And again, I'll put stuff on the screen, guys, of like what my bank statements used to look like. It used to be tons of FanDuel transactions. I was really in deep at this point. Not to mention, again, I was incredibly upset. I mean, something that I tried to fill the void in myself. I tried to, stand out, like not be ordinary anymore, but like have some sort of significance to me. And I felt like I was doing it, and I just got ripped away from that. And so I had a time where I was on top of the world and people looked up to me and people thought I was different. And like, I was like, yeah, this is my thing. Like, this is what I'm doing. And imagine that just gets taken from you and you return to square one. How would you feel? Like that's how I felt. And, it brought me down to a very, very dark place at that point. Now, I think what I did there around the winter time of 2023 is what made me 2023, 2024. It's the factor that's driven me to where I am now. And I won't get too deep into the story, but I was on a bike ride around that winter time, and I was never, just so that you guys know, I was never brought up religious. It's not something that happened, but I guess I was surrounded by it a little bit, and I started praying to God, Jesus specifically. I started praying to God for an opportunity. That's the word that I used. I needed an opportunity. I didn't know what to do. I was confused. I felt like I was thrown all over the place. I had no idea what to do at this point. I felt like everything was crashing down. And so I just prayed for an opportunity. And what happened next is pretty unbelievable. But within the next 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks, incredibly fast, a connection that I had made from the clothing brand stuff, the guy whose $50 mentorship I was in reached out to me specifically, and we weren't that close. We kind of knew each other, but he reached out to me and he asked me to become his DM setter. And I didn't know what a DM setter was. I didn't know what high ticket sales was. I didn't know what he wanted me to sell. I had absolutely no idea about any of these things. All I knew that was an opportunity that I needed, that I prayed for, and it was there. And so I took it. I texted him back. I said, absolutely, I will. I don't know what it is. He sent me a couple of YouTube videos. He plugged me into his business. It was a mentorship on how to start clothing brands. It was $3,000. Plugged me in. I learned strictly off of YouTube, and I started DM setting for him. Now at this point, it is January, maybe February of 2024 now, so still my sophomore year in high school, and I got super deep into it. This was a business model that I really liked because it was purely commission based. So back when I ran my clothing brand, yeah, I'd have some months where I'd make $2,000. Specifically one month I made $2,000, but I didn't really make $2,000. Whereas with DM setting, it was I closed somebody or I set them, I just made $150. I just made $300. And so in my first 2 weeks, give or take, working with him, I probably made about $1,000, maybe $2,000, and I felt, again, ecstatic. I felt so good. This was the most money I had ever made in my life. I was 15. None of my friends were doing this, and so I decided to just go all in, like really all in at this point. What that meant is I stopped paying attention in school. I was pretty strictly on my phone all day, texting every single class, all day, all night. I was texting, I was DM setting, and just I was really locked in at this point, in all honesty. And this was great all through January, February, until I broke my thumb, which is the only thing that I need to DM set is my thumb. And I literally broke my right thumb. I'll put a picture up of the cast. I broke my right thumb wrestling, which meant that DM setting was pretty hard for me at this point. And again, we reached a point where I was at a little problem because I had just made, $3-4 grand in a month, 2 months straight. I was on top of the world. I felt amazing. And then boom, now I can't DM set anymore. So what do? I started transitioning into closing. Funny enough, I was already super interested in closing. I really wanted to do it. It was the next step, just so that you guys know. DM setting is setting the appointments for a business owner, and then closing is like you're on the end of the Zoom and you're actually closing those deals, and you get more commission for doing that. So that was something I was super interested in. And I talked to the offer owners, I talked to the business owners, and they were kind of against it. But the current closer actually went on a cruise, and he went on like a week-long cruise where he couldn't take calls. And I told them, listen, you guys could stop business for a week, or you could give me a chance. Let me take a couple calls. I promise I'll prove it to you that I'll do the work. I will be the best closer on the team. And they let me do it. They let me hop on and take calls. I closed 2 out of my first 3. So that made me $600 in a day. And I can't explain the feeling. I felt like I was so back. I was so back. I was on top of the world earlier in the year, and now I was so back. I was that person again. Like I had something that made me me again. I had some sort of a significance to me. It was the best feeling in the world, like to finally be back. But Of course, I wasn't going to stop there, right? Like, I was just making a couple grand a month. Maybe I made $5,000 that month. I really needed to make a change, because how do you get from $5,000 a month to 250? It's a big jump. And so I reached out, and there was this kid. He was 16 years old and I was 15, and he was doing high ticket sales. And I decided to have him mentor me, and it was rough. He had to objection handle me on the phone. It wasn't easy for me to do, but a good sales rep, a good seller is a good buyer. Like, that's just the way that it is. And so I knew that if I wanted to be a good seller, if I wanted to be a good closer, I had to be a good buyer. I had to be a good customer. So I ended up emptying my bank account, all the money I had made. I paid this kid, and it worked. You know, he helped me out a lot. In that time, I also joined a couple communities, so I met a lot of really cool people. I started putting myself out there on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, all the different platforms, started putting myself out there. You know, when you're 15, you're making 10 grand a month, $5,000 a month in remote sales. You know, people flock to you. People are impressed by that because it's such a young age. And, you know, it worked out, landed me a ton of connections. And where we get there is to my first YouTube video ever, which was my podcast with Cardinal Mason. And if you guys don't know Mason, I heavily recommend you take a look into him. He does copywriting, but Mason quote tweeted one of my tweets about making, I think it was like $5,000 a month. And he posted a TikTok and an Instagram reel about it. And I had no idea who this guy was. In all honesty, like, I really didn't know that he was such a prominent guy, but that was amazing. Like, it felt like I have this guy online who's a mainstream guy in the space who's now posting my stuff. And that was a feeling that I really wanted to replicate. And Mason offered me a spot on his team. It wouldn't really work out. I met another guy who was his sales manager at the time, but it didn't really work out. But what happened was I ended up reaching out to Mason. I came down to Miami. I hopped on a podcast with him, and I made a lot of connections from that. It was great. And something that you guys should know is actually getting out there and meeting these people is one of the biggest things I can ever recommend, because Mason, just so that you guys know, is such a standout, straight up guy, such a nice character. Who really like boosted me here, and not only boosted me, but gave me a ton of advice that like helped me reach that next level. So I started hopping on other opportunities. Eventually I landed myself in a closing role. It was a TikTok affiliate offer. This was leading into like the summer of my sophomore year. So we're leading into summer. I'm closing for this TikTok affiliate offer, and honestly, I just take off. That entire summer, I mean, really June, July, August, September, all through the summer, I was consistently closing anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 in cash collected at a super high conversion rate, probably like an 80% close percentage. It obviously took me a lot of time to heat up and like actually get to that point. But once I got there, I was earning $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month in commission every single month from this guy. And that was my first taste of real money. That was my first taste of like, you know, it's not real money, but like that was real money to me. It was like, wow, I'm now making $25,000 a month. I'm 15 years old. I had just turned 16. I'm 16 years old. That's just something that's you can't replicate that feeling. Again, guys, like I was back. I made it real. Like it was real before. It crashed and burned. Now it was real again. Like I'm finally doing this. It was my thing. It was the thing where if you ask somebody in my grade, if you ask somebody around me, if you ask somebody who knows me, who is Russell Sage, that's the kid that's the entrepreneur. That's the kid that's online running businesses. That's the kid that's on the podcast, posting the videos, making money. It wasn't about the money to me. You know, it was just about having something that made me me, having something that set me apart, that made me significant. And I was back at that point. But absolutely, I was not done. Like I was literally, when I say I was just getting started, I know it sounds funny, but like I absolutely was. Something that goes along with that, guys, is this chair that I'm sitting in, this Herman Miller chair. It's like $2,000. Over that summer, I got that as a bonus on my sales team. So I was crushing it. I was the top closer every single month by a landslide. Now, what's the next step, right? I'm in high school. I'm obviously in school all day and I'm making $25,000 a month. Like, what's the next step? How do I get to the next step? Like, how do I see people making 50, making 100, like, how do I get there? And the answer was brand scaling, not just brand scaling, but like info product scaling. That was the answer. And so going into that year, September, October, November of 2024, I started landing some clients for info product operating. Most notably, I can't name any names, but there was a couple people that had nearly 1 million followers that I was working with. There was a couple people that were brand new that I was working with. But the point is, I was able to charge these guys because of my skill set. I was able to charge these guys $10,000, $15,000 up front in some cases, and anywhere from 10 to 20% commission on their entire sales team for the month. And so I won't get too deep into it, but I learned how to build funnels. I learned how to make a YouTube channel blow up. I learned how to build an entire sales team from scratch, manage a sales team, manage the sales reps, hire them, fire them, everything that you need to do. And I was able to earn anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a month all throughout that on all the mentorships that I was managing, including the one that I had with my business partner. But everything in general, I was doing anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a month, just scaling info products, including my own, but all of them. And then we get to the end of junior year. And so it's 2025 now. I've been consistently doing anywhere from 50 to 100 a month, coaching business who coach inside of there, and who we also work with to this day. And that was awesome. My biggest recommendation is just to get out there and travel. Because when I went and met these people, it was just like a big experience for me. Like I'm meeting these people that I only knew online that are super successful. It was just a great feeling. But again, now we're going into summer. And I started really taking this stuff seriously. I started running ads. So before, everything was pretty organic for not only my own, but all other info products that I was working with. I started learning how to run ads, and that was honestly the game changer. And so across all mentorships that I was scaling, we ended up collecting a couple $100,000 every single month, which meant my commission was super high on that. And then leading through the summer to early September this year, which now we're at September this year, I've been able to hit some months that were close to 200, 250, and at this month it was $247,000. That's been super strong. Like, it's something to be happy about. Now, when I say to you guys very clearly that the money is not what matters, that's what I mean. So you guys have been with me now my entire story. I know it got, a little bit quicker at the end, but you guys have been through the entire story from 14 years old, Russell, freshman in high school, to now senior in high school, starting my senior year. And I'm still in high school, by the way. I haven't dropped out. September of senior year, doing, you guys saw the failures, you guys saw the successes, you guys saw the addiction, you guys saw the issues, and now I'm at a point where I'm doing 247 to 250, basically $250,000 a month. The month before this, we finished at like 230,000. The month before that was 210. So I've been pretty close to 250 every single month, anywhere from 200 to 250. That's where we're at. Now, if you guys are still watching, I think that's great, but I want to make something clear, and not just something clear from my situation, but something that has to be clear from every situation. If you want to be a weapon, if you want to be somebody who gets to that point, is it can't be about the money. It can't be about greed. It can't be about pride. It can't be about any of those things. You got to stay away from that, because for me, when I say it's not about the money, it truly isn't. Yes, I have a couple watches. I have a car. I don't have anything crazy, but I don't care about the money. For me, the money's nice, right? I need it, obviously, to live my day to day. But what's important is being who you want to be, getting that to that level of significance where you can look around and have some influence. You can run a team. You can make other people rich. That's what's really going to make you feel good. I feel like a 65-year-old man, giving advice, but that's really where I land with it, is if money is your root and your goal, it's a monetary goal, and it's proof that your work is paying off, and that I like, but you will never be successful if that's your only goal. Something that I didn't note too much, but I want to make super important, is ever since that bike ride, and ever since all of that, faith has been a super strong point in my business, in my life in general. And it's something that if you guys have questions about, I'm not a genius, but if you guys are interested in getting into that, message me. That is something that truly changed my life and will change yours as well. And it goes along with it, is greed and money cannot be at the center of your viewpoint. It can't be there, because all it will do is bring you further and further away. I've met a lot of people that have made a lot of money and are some of the saddest, most empty people you will ever meet in your life. And I truly believe the reason for that is that, yes, they have money, but every other aspect of their life is empty, and it won't be fulfilled until you start reading the word, you move closer to faith. So I just want to make that super clear through all of this. And again, if you have questions about that, send me a message. But yeah, that's the story, guys. So that's A to Z. Freshman year, Russell, 14 years old, really my whole life, but 14 years old, all the way up to 17 years old, 3 years. It felt like an absolute eternity, but we're here now. And so I urge you guys to reach out if you have any sort of questions whatsoever. Reach out on Instagram. My link is in the description. Question about business, questions about anything in the world, how you can get into this, whatever it is, just reach out. And yeah, at the very least, I hope you guys took something from this video that you can apply to your own life, make yourself better in any sort of way whatsoever. That's my goal here. But I appreciate you guys watching. If you stuck through the end, I do appreciate it. And yeah, take care. I'll see you guys in the next one.